Your goal really is to think about your relationship like three people. It's you and your husband, and the relationship is like the third person or the thing in which you're supposed to be working towards, not your needs and his needs, but the needs of this. It's hard sometimes because when you're in the moment, you're thinking, am I this unhappy? Am I really unhappy? Am I just a little unhappy? Is this how everyone's marriage is? Is this just what marriage is?
You don't know when enough is enough. Should I just suck it up? Is the grass greener? You do look to people and friends to try to gauge, like, where does my relationship sit compared to others?
All I kept saying on the video is like, I am failing everywhere. I'm failing at home. My kids are struggling. I'm struggling. My house is a disaster. A lot of the things that we think we're controlling, they're not ours to control.
Do you think after the separation you are a better mother?
It's a great question. I mean,
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Laura Show. This may be a familiar face, although the set is not familiar for you, but I brought on Sam Hewit again. Sam, you were my first guest on my podcast. About 15 months ago, we recorded that episode.
It feels like yesterday.
I know it feels like yesterday. I was thinking that. I was like, oh my God, it's been 32 episodes since we've done that.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And it obviously all started off with you, and it's now morphed into, like I said, a new set. And I knew at that time, I think I even said at the end of that episode, I know I'm going to have you back.
You did.
And I knew I was going to have you back because you're just one of those people who I know you're always up to new things and you're always challenging yourself. And you've had quite a 15 months.
I have.
And
I've been busy.
You are busy. We're going to definitely get into everything that's been happening in your world from career work perspective, some of the side hustles that you're up to. But I wanted to first bring you back and kind of remind everybody where we left off. We were sort of having a very personal conversation, which I, of course, appreciate. And I feel like for my viewers and listeners, it was actually one of the most real conversations that we've had on the show because you were so forthcoming with everything. And it's something that resonates with a lot of people because divorce and separation happens to a lot of people. Most marriages in North America end up in divorce. And yet I feel like so many people still feel like they're very alone in that process. And
Definitely.
they feel like it's only them.
Definitely.
And so I wanted to kind of come back. Maybe you can bring us back to that journey, back to the moment so our viewers and listeners can kind of understand the background behind it, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. I unfortunately got a divorce during COVID. And I say unfortunately because I think there's a lot of funny memes and things you can find online where it's like, celebrate being divorced, or I'm going to have a divorce party, or here's the cake. But I really do think that it can be an incredibly sad, challenging time, especially if there's kids involved and, trying to manage, being a mom and putting your kids first, but also that really kind of delicate balance of also putting ourselves first as women. And I think that's a really common theme for a lot of the women that I talk to, whether they're divorced or not. Just this whole idea of everyone else's needs coming before theirs. And it's common in motherhood, but even for women like you, I mean, you and I had this chat kind of walking over to the studio, where you're getting up earlier, you're doing more of the lifting, you're, running, you've lived a whole day by 8:30. And, a lot of that is because we're trying to put other people before ourselves. And I find men don't always have that same problem or that same challenge.
And do you think it's like an expectation as well at society? Like, we should be doing more, perhaps?
Yes, 1,000,000%. It really is. And people say it all the time. Well, then women should just put themselves first. Well, because it's that easy, right? It really is an expectation on women to be caregivers and nurture and look after everyone's needs. And so, when I got a divorce, I will say it was a sad time. It's hard for my kids. But I feel like personally, I've really come a long way in terms of how I've changed and been really quite different since then.
Can you talk to us about what your mindset was going into marriage? Because I feel like coming out of it, it changes with a lot of people. Who were you going into the marriage? What were you hopeful for?
Well, I think no one gets married thinking they're going to be one of the divorced people, right? I think everybody goes into their marriage and they're like, it's never going to be me. Never say never. But I think there's a lot of, demands on couples and, a lot of demands on being parents if you are parents. And I think that really is part of the driving force sometimes between how your relationship evolves, because there's not just two of you involved anymore. And so obviously I went into my marriage hoping I'd be married forever, like everybody does. But things change, people change. And if you're not really kind of committed to working with each other and on yourself at the same time, you'll hit stagnation, you'll hit resentment, you'll hit anger and, unmet expectations. And eventually it just doesn't work.
It's interesting you said people change and you have to, I think in relationships often you have to expect that people are going to change, although again, that sounds easier said than done. Do you feel like you were the one who changed a lot in the relationship? Like as you matured as a woman and as you figured out more about your career, what you wanted, what your aspirations and goals were, did you change a lot throughout that process?
I think we both did. I mean, I know I changed for sure, but I think we both did. And I think that, the journey that women go on if they become mothers, if they're fortunate enough to become mothers, really is not for the faint of heart. It really is unbelievable how much you change once you have children. And I think that I know I changed a lot professionally and I changed a lot who I was as a person, but I really think for me it was that journey of motherhood. And I think I've learned a lot about myself looking back. I mean, I learned a lot about how I showed up in ways I think I'd show up differently if I ever got married again. But I definitely think that the evolution of being in a successful relationship is both parties' ability to be able to grow together and be in service of the relationship, not just of one another. So when we were in marriage counseling, the counselor would say to us, your goal really is to think about your relationship like three people. It's you and your husband, and the relationship is like really the third person, or the thing in which you're supposed to be working towards, not your needs and his needs, but the needs of this.
Oh,
I thought it was such an interesting conversation. I learned so much through that process as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had obviously lots of conversations with my girlfriends, and you just watch things on TV, podcasts, you hear people talking about the relationships, and relationships are a lot of work. I really don't think people quite understand how hard marriage is, even more so when you bring children into the world. I can only imagine. And I feel like so often women with each other, will complain and we'll say like, oh, I can't stand him today, and this whatever is going, or her today, whatever's going on. I'm sure men feel the same way, or whoever it is in relationships feel the same way. But they're, I'm always curious if it's like death by 1,000 cuts sometimes, and it just sometimes you wake up and feel like I just can't take it anymore. I can't do it. There's no amount of therapy that's going to help, or if it's like, I don't know, this like monumental moment where you just wake up and you're like, I'm kind of over it. Like, I'm just done.
I can't speak for other people. I don't know. I mean, I think for me, there was a very clear moment where, I thought to myself, like, it's okay. I'll just tough it out. My kids are little and no one wants to put their kids through this. So I'm just gonna, tough it out, and we'll just stay together. And I remember talking to my therapist. I laugh now. And I said to her, it's fine. Like, I'll just make it work until the kids leave the house. And she's like, that's 15 years. And I'm like, yeah, it's 15 years. She's like, that's 15. She's sort of like yelling at, that's 15 years. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess that is a long time. Yeah, I guess
because years go by kind of quickly, but 15, like, it almost saddens me to hear you say that you were just so willing to say, like, I'll just suck it up. 15 years.
And again, I mean, it's hard sometimes because when you're in the moment, you're thinking, am I this unhappy? Am I really unhappy? Am I just a little unhappy? Is this how everyone's marriage is? Is this just what marriage is? Like, there was a big part of that where I'm like, maybe this is just, you fight about the laundry and have sex once in a while. Like, maybe that is what it is. I don't know. Like, and I'm asking my girlfriends, like, are you happy with? And you hear varying degrees of the spectrum. And if you ever are in a position where that's a consideration of yours and you open up that dialogue with women that you're close to, you will be fascinated what you hear. The things I heard from my girlfriends of what goes on behind closed doors in their marriage, I was blown away. Like, I have, a good friend of mine, and they have I had no idea they have a completely open arrangement.
I've heard some of those stories myself.
You could have knocked me over with a feather. I was speechless. I'm like, well, how does that work? Like, then you have all these questions.
And like, I want to know more. It's funny though that you bring this up. I literally have on my card, like, did you run it by anybody? Like, did you talk about this?
So you're gonna ask if I was in an open marriage? I was like,
no. Like, did you like? Because I think so. Like, you don't know. Like, you don't know when enough is enough. When, like, should I just suck it up? Is the grass greener? And so you do look to people and friends to try to gauge, like, where does my relationship sit compared to others? And I'm sure that some people also put up with a lot more as well.
I think that, I did pass it by people. I think what ultimately made the biggest difference for me that I feel like hopefully your listeners and your watchers will take is that the best advice I got was from a life coach I was working with at the time. And I asked her the same question. She's divorced. She has 3 kids. And I said, how did you know? And she said, it doesn't really matter. And I was like, yeah, but how did you know? And she said, Sam, the only thing that matters is how you feel.
Okay, but how do you know how you feel? Some women aren't as maybe tapped into their gut as much as others.
Guess what I said?
Same thing.
Obviously. We're friends for a reason.
Yeah. Like, well, I don't know how I feel. Tell me how I feel. I need you to tell me how I feel.
I need you to tell me. I think I said that to her, and she was like, okay, we're going to take a moment. We're going to take a big breath. And I will admit to you, I didn't know in that moment, which is why it was not an overnight decision. And it wasn't an overnight, thing that I blew up my whole life. It took a long time. And it took a lot of conversations, and it took a lot of discussions with my husband to say, like, if it's just me, like, let me know. And I didn't know how I felt in that moment, but that became kind of my guiding principle. And, depending on how well you know me very well. I'm not a woohoo, touchy-feely kind of human. That's not my natural, perspective on life.
No.
But I did in that moment, when you have, again, all of these things coming at you 24/7, you're trying to work out, you're trying to build a business, you're trying to be a wife, in my case, I was trying to raise my kids and, call my mother-in-law and self-care and and it actually did teach me that inevitable lesson I think we all have to learn, which is, how do I feel? Me. Just strip out the noise and the expectations and the me. And I think if you're trying to look down the barrel of blowing up your whole life, that's really all you can go on. Because
does that mean like you take time to yourself, journal? Like, what is it that allows you to get in touch with your own feelings?
You have to sit in really quiet spaces, which is boring for us A-types. And we're like,
that sounds awful. Already, like, you're saying it, and I'm like, no. I don't want to be left alone to my thoughts.
It's scary there.
Yeah, it's
scary there. And again, it sounds woohoo, and I'm not a woohoo person. But, it's long walks, and, it's long walks with Rudy, and in my case, Muffin. And, it's really like, how does this feel to me? That was really the only thing I could kind of go on, because otherwise you just don't have the courage really to go through it, because it felt like this constant choice of me choosing myself over my kids, which is an awful place to be as a mom. And I have a girlfriend right now actually going through a very painful divorce, and she didn't make the choice. It was made for her. And, when she's having those dark moments where she calls me and she's weeping on the phone, she says, I wish that I'd made the choice. And I said, I know, but you didn't want to make the choice. And she's like, I know, but looking back, I think I should have made the choice first, but you didn't get that choice. And now she's going through this incredibly hard, difficult road of where I was when I started 3 years ago. And I'm so happy to be there for her in her journey, but listening to her talk about it and trying to sort of help her process those feelings, I keep saying to her, how do you feel? And she just keeps saying, I'm so angry. And I'm like, well, that's just fear. Like, you're just scared, which is normal.
Which is, generally speaking, anger comes from like sadness, fear. And it's funny to see you hearing like listening to someone else's story, because you can probably now say, oh, I remember when I was there, but thank God I'm on this side of it now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to reassure her, like, you're going to get to the other side. You're going to get to the other
Mm-hmm.
side. But when you're in it, it doesn't always feel like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's interesting because it really does lend itself a little bit to a business perspective, which is so fascinating, right? Because when I have real estate agents come in to see me and they say, like, I can't prospect, or I can't host an event, or I can't get on video because I don't feel X. Like, I don't feel good enough. I don't feel pretty enough. I don't feel this. That is a feeling, but I always will say to them, like, unless you feel like you're worthy of success, you're never going to kind of get where you want to go, because you're always going to kind of feel like a fraud. When you and I sit in front of the camera, we've been doing it for long enough. And I think we're both at a point in our lives where this is just who we are. And so what my divorce really taught me is, like, a lot of the things that we think we're controlling, they're not ours to control.
Right.
And
that's interesting. But it's also, I think when you get to a place where you say, I am confident that I not deserve, but like,
yes,
why can't I have a better life, or the life that I want? And there really is no good enough reason not to believe it, I think, right? And that's what makes you go on camera and get past it, because you're like, well, if I want something, I'm going to get it, but I'm going to do it through hard work.
Yes.
But I still deserve it if I do the work. Where some people, I feel like maybe they don't have that underlying belief in themselves, and so that's what maybe stops them.
And ultimately it's always you, right? If you want to have a better marriage, you need to be better in your skin. If you want to be a better real estate agent, you have to get better at your skills. If you want to have a better life, that's up to you. And I think that is a lot of what, I don't think I ever really had a victim mentality, but definitely going through what I've been through, I'm like, my Lord, it's just me. Like, it's all my shit.
Yeah, it's so funny. And anytime I start to get into that excuse mode where I don't want to do this, and my life's not going the way I thought, and why aren't things like, happening, I do try to stop myself as quickly as possible. Yes. It's one thing to have those thoughts. I think most people do, but it's like you have to catch them, and then you're like, no, this is on me.
Yes.
Like but that's the only way you can control it. It's really the only way you can get out of bed in the morning, because if you don't feel that way, then why are you getting up in the morning?
Only way.
Right? I'm curious, obviously you get to the point where you make the decision, it's not working. I feel like a lot of people, maybe I'm wrong, but would be like, now what? Like, I'm not happy in this marriage. What's the next step? Do we talk to the kids first? Do we just pretend and someone moves out first? Like, what do you feel? Again, there's no right way, but maybe what were you kind of going through, your thoughts on what the next step is?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is if you have someone in your life and they're all of a sudden like, oh, we're getting a divorce, and you're like, well, have you tried everything? 99% of the time they've tried everything. Like, it really is a little bit infuriating when they're like, well, maybe you should just try this. And you're like, it's not like we've had this thought and now we're announcing it.
It's not like a fight and you're like, we're just in a bad place today, but tomorrow I'll be over it. My emotions will calm down. You've gone through it.
It's years of doing the work and trying and emotions, conversations, therapy. Like, it's a long process. I think for us, where I'm really proud of my ex-husband and I, is that we took the time to really make sure we could do it right, which sounds so stupid, but we met with my daughter, and my older daughter has anxiety. And so she's had a counselor for a long time. And so we went to that counselor and we said, like, look, this is what's happening, and, give us the best practices. And so she's like, these are the things, this is how you phrase the conversation, this is what you say, these are the specific sentences, and you're going to have this conversation over and over and over and over. It's not a one-time discussion. And
damn it.
I know.
We can't just have this awkward conversation one time and it'd be done. And I guess it depends on the child and the age as well. Like how honest and...
To be honest, what she said, which I found fascinating, is she said, it actually doesn't matter how old your kids are.
Oh, okay.
She said kids will want their parents to be together even if they're adults, which was kind of like a heartbreaking thought a little bit at the time. And I think I almost was like, okay, I changed my mind. But I knew I was unhappy enough that I had to make this decision for all of us. I think kids need a happy mom, and I think they need a happy life. And so we worked with her a lot to really make sure we were doing the absolute best we could. And I was really proud of us for that, and really proud of, the work that we did to make sure it was as good as it could possibly get in a horrible situation. But since then, I have really spent the time over the last 3.5 years to give my kids the absolute best that I can with regards to resources, support, counselors, being able to talk to people, voice their concerns. Like my younger daughter was upset yesterday because her sister got 2 pairs of shoes and she only got one. Because of course she gets the hand-me-downs.
Yes.
And so instead of being like, well, you get the hand-me-down, instead of launching into this whole explanation, I just said, babe, it's okay you feel like that. You're allowed to be disappointed because you only get 1 pair of shoes. That's okay. And I really am proud of the ability that I've really tried to work through with my kids to give them the space that they need. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're going to go through this process and you have children, talking to a professional to understand the language to use and how to have the conversation and, really some must do's and must not do's.
Yeah, it's funny because in parenting, so often, you give birth to a baby. There's no book. It's like, well, there's books, but like, there's not really the proper guide. And a lot of people don't seek guidance. They're like, I'll just learn. It will be intuitive. But at least with something like this, it's like there's so many people who have gone through this. So what I love that you went to the therapist, the counselor, and said, what are the best practices?
Yeah.
Like, let's set ourselves up for as much success as possible, even in a hard time. Mm-hmm. So that's amazing. It sounds like you guys did a good thing.
I think we did. And it's been really helpful with her because I still meet with her once every couple months. She meets my kids and then I meet with her. And it's kind of this funny, like, parent coaching, like psychology, like therapy for me, all wrapped up into one. And sometimes like I'll say like, oh, I feel like I'm a terrible mother. And she's really got my back. It's good to have a relationship with a professional that sees you and your kids and is really able to kind of, disseminate some of the tough stuff. Like we had a really tough time in the fall, and she said to me, you do the work of most couples that are still married. She's like, that's how hard you work at motherhood. She's like, most women, they're great moms, but she's like, you are a different kind of mom.
Out of curiosity, do you think after the separation, you are a better mother?
It's a great question. I mean, I think that, when you're married and you have your partner at home with you, you have the luxury of someone to be there with you. You don't have that luxury when you're home on your own. Like when I have my kids, we are full out. If it's my weekend and it's like a Friday night to a Monday morning, like by Monday morning, I'm like, oh,
thank God they're leaving.
So tired. Thank God I'm going to work today. Like I'm bagged. Like it's so much. And my kids are busy and we have activities. Like it's a lot. So I think that I'm a better mother in this sense that I have to be really intentional. And even when they're going back to their dads on a day that I know they're going to go back to their dads the next day, I'm really intentional with my time. And it's not perfect. If you ask them, they might be like, no, you're a terrible mother. You were better before.
Well, that's what all kids say. But it's interesting because I would imagine that most people, if you think you have unlimited time with your kids, there is no like at this time they leave, you might take some of that time for granted more.
Yeah. I mean, I really try when they're with me to make sure I'm as present as possible. It's not perfect. I have a busy job. Mm-hmm. I have a busy life. I do a lot, they're busy. They have activities. Like it definitely is a juggle, but I really try as best I can to be intentional. And I think that my relationship with them is different. Is it better? It's hard to quantify as they get older. But I definitely will say it's different. It feels different for me too. And our ability to connect and my ability to like hold space for how they're feeling and, just really be there for them in those moments that they're feeling it.
What were you most fearful of at the time when you decided like, we're going to do this? And is it different now?
No. You're scared of everything. You're scared of, on the kid side, you're scared of ruining your kids. You're scared of, ruining their life. And you hear all these awful statistics like, kids that come from divorced houses are like 50% more likely to be criminals. And you're like, all right, kids can be a criminal. Or like teenage pregnancy. Like there's all these insane stats out there.
And you, of course, probably
started
looking into it, right?
Yes. Definitely. So you're definitely worried, about like the kid side of things, about like, damaging your kids, making them unhappy, making them ostracized. Like at the time when we split up, my daughter was like, I am the only kid in my class. And I'm like,
give it a
no,
couple
you're
of
not.
years.
No, but I was like, no, you're not. I'm like,
Okay.
Dapper's out. And I'm like, and I know those two are really close.
Right,
so, I
right.
mean, they're going to be divorced soon. But, they kind of have this mentality. On the kid side, you're just terrified for your kids. On the personal side for yourself, obviously, generally people are worried about their finances. Divorce is very expensive. And, you're always worried, am I going to be able to restart again? What does this look like? I mean, I was only 38, so I had sort of the luxury of time, and I'm able to support myself. So that's a big kind of piece of the puzzle. On the, relationship side, of course, there's the like, I'm going to die alone. I'm never going to find anybody. These moments where you're like, I'm just going to be a cat lady. Like, it's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Or I'm going to be, Kristen Cavallari and go meet some 24-year-old, and that's going to blow up, right?
I just saw her in my feed this morning, so that's funny.
So good.
Bring her up.
Yeah. But I think that, the fears don't change. I think you always have the same fears. But I think that what happens over time is through very real evidence, you start to prove to yourself those things aren't going to happen. And you start to prove to yourself that things are going to be okay. And it does get better. But there are many, many nights where I'm awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, oh my God, am I going to have enough money? Like, are the kids okay? And maybe I should be doing this. And if I was still married, I'd have the ability to do that. And, you always go through the what ifs in your head.
Right.
But I think that's just life. I think if you were unhappily married and you were thinking about getting divorced, and you'd run through the opposite. Like, if I was divorced, I could do this, and I think that's just human.
How do you in those moments deal with like the nonstop chatter that happens?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any, I probably could use some healthier coping.
Wine?
I probably could use some healthier coping mechanisms. I mean, I will go for a walk. I will work out. I'll do stuff like that. I will call a girlfriend, have a glass of wine, listen to a podcast. There's a big, if you want to go deep into like resources in a community, there's a lot of resources and communities and groups and women that are in the same spot that I'm at, that are, raising kids and trying to build a business and, trying to be all things to all people. And you can find connection and support through that, which is great. I mean, I still have lots of good friends that I had before, but I also have new friends that I've made, that are going through this single mom, like, okay, now you're dating. What does that look like?
Yes.
And, like I have some good friends that are in the same spot that I'm in, and that's really helpful.
Speaking of dating,
yes.
What's that like?
Speaking of Kristen Cavallari.
Speaking of Kristen Cavallari. So talk to me, you and your husband, you met when you were how old? You started dating?
I was 26.
26. So you haven't gone on a date. It's 26.
Yeah.
So 38-ish.
It's a dumpster fire. I mean, it's not. It's actually not.
A lot's changed since.
A lot's changed.
Yeah.
A lot's changed. I mean, to be totally honest with you, online dating, people always give it such a bad rap. It's the same thing as if you were going to a bar. If you're going to go to a bar, not that anyone does that anymore, but if you were to go to a bar, we were in our 20s on a Saturday night, and there's, 100 dudes in the room, there might be one or two that you think are cute enough that you want to start a conversation with. And of those one or two, you might go on a date with one. It's the same thing on a dating app. It's just harder because I'm sure people in your life, hopefully your husband's not watching this, that, you see them maybe online and you're like, wow, they're so cute. But then you meet them in person, they open their mouth and you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Never mind.
You
were cuter with your mouth closed.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and the reverse is true. You meet people in real life that you wouldn't even look at them twice, but you get to know them and you're like, I really like you. And then they become more attractive. That's the challenge with online dating, is you don't have that ability to get to know somebody until you meet them. But meeting them requires a lot of time. And so this is probably beyond our scope today, but I had like a whole little cute system that I would go through.
Like what? Do you mind sharing? I'm curious.
No, okay. Live vicariously through me?
Yeah, a little.
So I think
swipe.
I think to start, first and foremost, I think that you have to have pretty clear kind of parameters in your profile about what you're looking for. So I was always very upfront. I'm busy. I have 2 kids. I have like a lot going on in my life. And so that kind of, you try to weed out some of the time wasters just from what you have in your profile. And you have to be insanely honest with your photos. Like I know some women, if they don't feel confident in their body, they kind of only have like the shoulder up.
Yeah.
And I think that just leads to disaster later.
Right.
You're better to
Why waste the time on the date?
Exactly.
Right.
So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is I always would have men talk on the phone. I would never go meet somebody cold, because if you're having a phone conversation and it's awkward and it's kind of like, then I knew in person they wouldn't. And you can say maybe they're just not a phone person, but like, I'm not going to date someone that's not a phone person. Like, that's silly.
Right. That's good. I like that.
That's
a
silly.
good one.
That would be silly for me. Given what we do, right? We are.
Yes.
We're,
like, you want them to like, let's move it along.
That's correct.
Yes.
So that always helped. The phone call always helped. And the last thing is I wasn't really that invested, which for some reason you really worked well. Like I'm never going to be texting first. I'm never going to be like, that was a great date. We should go for dinner and let's try this place. That's just not my vibe. I spend so much of my day like you, planning and talking and strategizing and teaching and coaching and this and that.
Getting back to people.
if you're like, where do you want to go for dinner and what kind of, I'm like, no.
You have decision fatigue already.
I'm tired.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tell me where to be.
You like a bit of a traditional.
I like a traditional, which
sense.
I didn't realize. But then you start dating, and you're like, oh, I think I do kind of like this traditional.
Yeah, I like that for you. Would you like them to have kids of their own?
Yes. Oh, I'm so bad though. I'm like Goldilocks. They can't have two old kids, but not two young kids, and they can't.
Oh no.
I know.
Yes, that's the only thing I think about the dating app is because you do think there's somebody else. There's always going to be somebody else, right?
You do get that choice, right? That there's an expression for it where it's like you get that, you feel like there's unlimited choices. But again, I kind of, when my girlfriends are having this conversation with me, I kind of remind them it's like being at a bar. If you're talking to a guy and he seems nice and he's attractive and you're getting the vibe, why are you going to go do a 180 and talk to that guy? Just focus. Don't focus too much. Don't be like crazy about it. But you don't need to kind of keep swiping. If there's someone that you're kind of chatting with that you think might be something, then maybe just kind of see how that unfolds.
Okay.
But online dating for me, people would get so mad. My girlfriends would like lose their marbles. Online dating for me was so easy. I know.
Really?
I know.
Now you're just bragging.
And it wasn't that it was so easy, like every guy I went out with liked
Well,
me.
you're systematic,
No.
I guess. If you have the system and you know what you're looking for, it's kind of easy. Where I think some people, maybe they're not sure what they're looking for, so they're kind of like, well, maybe, and that gets you into trouble, I imagine.
And I think like listening to people's expectations around other people, like these are strangers. They don't know who you are. You can't expect anything. Like you go on a date and they don't call you. And my friends, I hear women be like, what an asshole. Like you went on one date. Like he owes you nothing.
Right.
Like,
and aren't you happy that he figured it out after one date and not 5, 10?
I think
another marriage.
Yes, exactly. God, another 12 years of your life.
Yeah.
I think I don't take things personally. And that's not saying I had success all the time. I certainly went out with men that I really liked, that I would date for a little bit. And then for whatever reason, it wouldn't work out. And you still get your feelings hurt. And you still think like, it's me. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. I'm too much of this. I'm too much of that. Like I'm not saying I didn't go through the same kind of whatever, but I never had like a horror story. I never had like a, crazy, awful, like he didn't look anything like his photos or like, I found out after a month he lived with his mother. Like none of that stuff ever happened to me. I met great, smart, successful, handsome guys that were polite and honest. And
I wonder if you, when you were dating in your early 20s, if that person's different. Like, are you more? Yes.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Maybe because that's why you're attracting.
Yeah,
Such great
1,000,000%. I know, 1,000,000%. And I think part of that is like the work I did over my divorce. I think like a lot of, I have a girlfriend right now who's going through a divorce and, she's like, I'm going to go on a date this weekend. And I'm like, I kind of think that's a bad idea, but I know you're going to do it anyways. So I'm just going to be here when you get back. I'll be waiting if you want to come to my house. So of course she goes on the date. It's a dumpster fire. And she's like, it was horrible. I'm like, I think, a lot of women I know kind of jump back in and then they realize like, oof, yeah, I'm attracting, people that maybe aren't who I want. And it goes for men too. I mean, I know other men getting a divorce and one of them said to me, I feel like I'm not attracting the kind of woman that I want. And I'm like, well, where are you? And he's like, well, I don't feel like I'm where I need to be. And I'm like, well, you're going to get that back.
Yeah.
Right. Because
sometimes I think people's expectation of what they want out of other people, it's like, I want them to be this, but they're not like that. Right.
Exactly.
I almost relate it to, because we're in the brokerage industry, is when people say, I'm leaving this brokerage and I'm going to go to another one and that's going to solve all my problems.
Yes.
And I'm like, the problem actually is that you bring you to the other brokerage,
correct.
right? It's like with relationships, like
Yes.
you're bringing you to the next relationship.
That's
So
correct.
how do you feel you're going to show up differently now than you perhaps did?
That's it. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, again, I've let go of a lot of expectations. I think I'm really clear on who I am and what I have the capacity for. And I think a lot of it too is time. In the beginning, I was definitely not ready to be dating seriously. And I thought I was. And you're also battling like loneliness, and you're coming home to your big empty house and your kids aren't home. And it's definitely like a mind, like, you could say it. Like it's a bit of a mind fuck. Like you come into your house and you're like, oh my God,
there used to be all these voices in here.
It's so quiet in here. Like the silence is deafening in the beginning. Now it's glorious, but in the beginning it's like, it's horrifying. And you have little kids and they're not there, and it feels very unnatural. Now you're like, oh, this is so good.
Sounds
like,
wonderful.
It's great. So I think I've let go a lot of those expectations, and I think it just is time. I think it's being ready to be, available to being in something more serious again. And it takes time to unwind your marriage. Even though you spend time in your marriage unwinding it, it's still time once you're on your own to unwind it. And it was really important for me to not jump into something so quickly or be with someone because I was scared to be alone. It was really important for me to be on my own and do the work and live through those terrible moments and go through the ugliness and really just make sure I was there for my kids and myself before I was ready to really kind of be with anyone else. So
I hear a lot of people, particularly soon after, they separate, I'm never getting married again. Do you feel that way?
No. I don't have a problem with the institution of marriage. I just wasn't happy in my own marriage. The institution does not offend me. I think, as humans, we're naturally designed to be with people. We miss companionship. And I have great friends. I have great people around me. I have a great job. I have great colleagues. Like, I'm really fortunate. But you still sometimes miss that one companion that you're used to having, that as soon as something happens, you want to go and talk to them. And I think that naturally most humans are designed to be with someone, whether that's marriage or not. I think it'll look different for everybody, but I'm not against getting married again as a concept.
So we haven't kiboshed all men together.
No.
So maybe it's not just Kat's and Sam's future.
I hope not. That's not the plan.
Question for you. What do you feel like the biggest lesson is from this for your kids, for your girls? What are you hoping that they'll see from this?
I think when I was, having that conversation with my counselor, and I was like, it's only 15 years. She said to me, what would you say to your daughter if she came to you and had the same dilemma? And I was like, oh my gosh, that was like a terrible question. I mean, it was so powerful, but it like made me like break down and cry for a long time. I think for what I hope my kids get, really what they get out of this, is that number one, I think as women, we have to make ourselves whole first. And I think we have to put ourselves first in our own feelings. And it's so hard to do in so many different ways. Expectations around society and motherhood and all of this pressure that comes from having it all, which is a whole other podcast that we can have one day. For me, I just really hope that my kids can look at me and know that I was making the decision for the right reasons. And it really was, even though it might seem selfish on the surface, it really was for me the ability to put myself first and be a better mom to them because I wanted to be happier. That's really all this was. This was just in search of happiness and what that looked like for me. And I hope they know that. I hope they know that as they get older. I hope that they learn from watching me that it's not easy to do, but if you put everybody else before you, you just end up miserable and you end up
and you probably end up making them miserable too.
Correct. That's exactly it.
You got to fill your own cup first.
Your own cup first.
It's a great lesson.
It is. God, it's hard to learn.
Yeah. We always have to learn things the hard way.
The hard way.
However, I feel like because of this process, you've now created something so special
Mhm.
that I absolutely love. In the last 15 months, you created a conference
Mhm.
called Becoming Her.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like you to maybe tell us a little bit about what the conference is,
Mhm.
what it means to you, and like why you decided to start it.
Yeah. Part of it came from my divorce and from women approaching me and having this conversation. In my day job, my professional life, I oversee a really large brokerage in the real estate space. And, I'm the only woman on the team. And so I get a lot of the women that come in and talk to me. And usually the conversation starts like, can I talk to you for a minute about something that maybe isn't work related? And I'm like, sure. So they come in and, they shut the door and they'll say, I just feel like I'm not where I want to be, or I'm not as successful as I want to be, or I feel like I'm failing, or I compare myself to Laura Stewart and she seems like it's just so effortless to be on camera and I'm not good like that and I'm never going to be good like that.
You've never heard that.
I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time.
Oh my gosh, if they only knew, right?
And, again, there's this fine balance when you're in leadership or when you're in, you're an entrepreneur and you're working for yourself that you don't always want to say like, yeah, I feel like that too. And I was sort of shy to say, I feel like that too. I was a little reserved because you don't, why? I mean, 1 million reasons why. I don't want them to lose confidence in me as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to think that I'm weak. I always thought that in order to be successful at managing people and leading people, I had to have it all figured out. And I had to be the one that was like, that's okay. And you're going to do it like this. And this is how I've done it. And this is why it's going to work. And again,
what are they coming to you for advice for then? If
correct.
You say, well, my life's a dumpster fire too, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
I get
exactly.
it. Yep.
So I spent so many years having that conversation. Everything's going to be great. This is how I've done it. This is how you're going to do it. Everything's going to go fine. Don't worry. And, it would happen again and again and again where women would come in and they would talk to me. And it hit me one day. I had a woman come in to see me and she said, look, I don't know. My marriage is in shambles. I'm not sure what's going on. We have 2 little kids. Do you have any advice for me? And so we had this, conversation. And right as the conversation I thought was wrapping up, she said, I don't know if I have the courage to do it because I look at you and you made it look so easy. And it was the same day that in the morning, I had interviewed Ryan Serhant live. Ryan Serhant, of course, is a very well-known, real estate personality. And I was interviewing him live online. And I was terrified. I didn't sleep. Big day. I didn't sleep for like a week. And the morning driving in, I had sent my girlfriend a video and I cried the entire time on the video, the whole way in. It's probably I think the video was 15 minutes long. And all I kept saying on the video is I am failing everywhere. I'm failing at home. My kids are struggling. I'm struggling. My house is a disaster. How am I going to manage a house by myself? I don't know how to cook. I don't know who the kid's doctor is. I don't know how to use the woodily thing that you hang pictures with. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know what is that a stud finder?
No, the thing where you put the thing in there. You put the nail in the wall. You
a drill?
A drill. A drill.
Okay.
I'm crying. I'm I don't know how to hang a picture. And I don't know. And I am weeping. And then I'm weeping because I'm I already did my makeup and I'm interviewing Ryan Serhant in 90 minutes. Now I'm looking at him crying. I cried the entire way. And then I got to the office and I took my makeup bag and I fixed my face and I got on the camera and I smiled really nice. And this woman had watched me in the morning and come in the afternoon and said, you have managed everything so perfectly and I don't think I can do it because I can't be like you. And it was the aha of ahas. And I stood up and I shut the door to my office and I sat back down with her and I said, I'm going to show you something. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'm going to show you something. And I took out my phone and I played her just 10 seconds of me hysterical at 8:30 that morning. And I said, I do not have it all figured out. And I have not handled this perfectly. And I am struggling every single day. I just don't talk about it publicly at work and I don't come in and I don't blubber all over the place because that's just not the kind of person that I am. But it was in that moment that I realized I was having the same conversation with women, not necessarily about divorce, but about success and having it all and the struggle of this and, infertility and, making enough money to survive and all of these things that women go through. But I was having it one-on-one. We weren't having it publicly.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't talking about it. We would go to conferences and, they'd put a woman on stage who would talk about something. But in the back of the room, I'm thinking, well, how does she do that with this? Or does she have help at home? Or does she feel that she's the only woman in leadership? And sort of the men she works with think that she gets a pass on certain things. Like, do they resent her sometimes?
Right. It's like whatever they're saying has like an asterisk next to it because it's like, maybe that works for her because her life's different than mine.
That's correct.
Right.
But we wouldn't know it because we never talked about that kind of stuff on stage. We talked about it like in the bathroom at the conference. I'd be like, do you think that she did? Someone would be like, oh, I think she does it like this. I tried this and it works for me. And finally I was like, we need to have this conversation in a bigger venue.
Yeah.
And that's why I created Becoming Her, because I felt like I was doing the people that I lead a disservice because I was coming on camera and smiling and telling them that everything was so great. And meanwhile, there's a lot that goes into what this looks like.
Right.
And I wanted to have those conversations on a more public stage. So Becoming Her was kind of born.
You had a full room. Like, I'm not surprised. I know you're popular, but girl, like a whole banquet hall filled of women. I know men wanted to come to support you as well. And we didn't allow the men, at least this time. And it just goes to show, all those one-on-one conversations that you've had with so many people, all the lives you've touched, they were so eager to obviously support you, but then to also say, this is also for me. I know I'm going to learn something. You had people there to talk about parenting. You had speakers to talk about business. You had someone to talk about you had people from all walks of life to kind of come on stage and help support women. Like, when you thought of Becoming Her, is that how you pictured it, the way it ended up?
Yeah, I will say I'm very proud of the fact that the vision I had in my mind came to life. That was really important for me. And I think, going back to your comment about different speakers and different avenues, people said, oh, are you doing a conference for women in business? And I was like, because I think for us as women, we're so dynamic and we're not just one piece. Like, how many times have you been like, I'm hosting an event and I'm getting my period. And so I can't wear that outfit. So I gotta, it sounds so silly.
Try not to be a bitch.
That's correct. Yes.
Or blow up at somebody.
Right. Yes.
Before. Yes.
Exactly.
No, it's so funny because I feel the podcast has changed. I started it with the intent of saying there should be podcasts run with female hosts about business because there's not a lot of them. But at the same time, you're right. So often I realize, like, when I go home, I don't necessarily think exclusively about work. I'm thinking about what should I wear on stage tomorrow? What should I be doing with my clothes? What my makeup? Oh my God, I'm aging. What's the right product I should be using? Those are the conversations that a lot of women are having. And maybe men aren't having them. Maybe they are. I'm not sure, but I know that women are having it. And so that made me want to change the conversations that I had on this show because I knew that those were conversations we were all having in private.
Yeah, that we are having, and things of fashion, even like for me, like, I'm going to be 42 next week, and I'm like, can I wear this at 42? Is this okay? I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard, but I also don't want to look, 55. But is this just for young girls or like, there was a lot of kind of things around that. And again, going back to what I said earlier about, when I have real estate agents come in to see me and they're like, I don't want to get on video because I don't like the way I look. To me, it's like, okay, well, let's figure that out because it's not as simple as just, I joke with Chris and Jeff when we have events at Royal LePage Signature. Like, I get up and we have an event on Friday and I, in my mind, have already, done this, planned that, but they, get up in the morning and they wash their hair and I don't know, they put gel in it and they put on a suit and they arrive.
Yeah. And they didn't also the night before have to take off their makeup and do the 16-point skincare routine, put their hair in rollers. There's so much, I don't know if more well-rounded, but I don't even necessarily mean that as a positive thing. It's just we think about so many more
Yes.
things.
Yeah,
Like, and
we
there's
do.
so much more to consider. And putting a suit on is one thing, but I don't think guys realize, like, when you put on a skirt, that comes with different things. Okay, are my
Correct.
legs gonna be cold? Should I be wearing tights? Should they be opaque tights, or should they be the? Oh, but then if my open toe shoe, then I can't wear tights. Like, there's all these
Yes.
layers.
And then on top of that, there's also the layer of like, if I wear a skirt with tights, are other women in the room going to judge me?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to think, why she must think she's so hot? Am I allowed to take up this kind of space in this room? And you said this to me when you came to Becoming Her, you were wearing an unbelievable orange suit.
Mm-hmm.
And Erica Wark, who was our fashion designer who did the fashion show from stage, commented on your suit on the stage. She said, where is the lady wearing the orange suit? And you said to me in the morning when I was getting dressed, I wondered, is this going to be too loud? I don't want to steal Sam's thunder.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are friends. I mean, I would never in a bazillion years look at you and go, well, what are you trying to do?
Like,
but
this is my conference.
That's correct. I would never think that.
Yeah.
But it's astonishing to me that even today, now, with our relationship, and this isn't about you personally, I'm the exact same, that's still a thought in our mind.
But you know, I think it stems from, like, wedding day. Like, you can't wear white on wedding. You can't wear beige on white. You can't upstage the bride. It's like we've been taught our whole lives that, like, again, putting other people first.
Yes.
I mean, being a maid of honor, the whole idea, the concept of like 8 women wearing the exact same outfit, and that shows nothing of their personality and who they are as people, just so that they don't upstage the bride, right? So it's not surprising. It's unfortunate. And thank God, though, you were wearing a way better suit. I came and I was like, yes, you were wearing a wonderful pink suit. It was incredible, but you're right. We do worry about taking up too much space, and we worry about what we say, and how does that come across? It's like through and through for all our lives. So I love the conference. What are your hopes and dreams for the future of it, if you know?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I want to do it again. I think I want to do it again. I'm not gonna say I will do it. I think I want to do it again.
I hope you do.
Thank you. Thanks. It really was. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a labor of love for sure. It really is a lot of moving parts. I have a great team working with me, so that was super helpful. But I do think in service of what I feel is so important to me, I probably will host another one. Just the ability to have these conversations and talk to women that are going through the similar path, for us to be able to say, like, it's okay, we're kind of all in it together. And I think there's incredible power in having a community around you of women who are just trying to figure it out and trying to support one another and trying to get better. And I think there's space for all of us. And I think together we can do really great things. So I do think we'll do it again. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, it really was, I've been talking about having a women's conference for 5 years. And my good friend Val Garcia, who spoke at the conference, every year I ask her, are you free if I host a women's, like, can you come to Canada and do, like, can you speak on my stage? And every year she's like, yeah, of course I can. And then she's like, what date are you picking? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get back to you. And then I never do. And finally this year, God bless her, I think it's because she wrote a book. She finished her book this year. And so when I asked her last year, when I was getting organized for Becoming Her, I said, will you come to Canada and speak at my conference? And she said, yeah. And she said, when's the date? And I said, I think it's this date. And she said, when are you going to get me an actual date and stop just talking about this? And I was like,
sometimes you need that kick in the ass.
Today, right? Today. That's what good friends do for each other.
I love that. What was the biggest lesson learned about, like, putting on a conference of this magnitude?
How much it was needed.
How much it was needed.
How much it was needed. The feedback.
I was going to ask you, what was the feedback?
It was, I thought it would be pretty good. Like, I've done events corporately at my brokerage for 15 years now, and I know how to run an event. We've never done an event of that magnitude with different speakers, speaker bureaus, handlers. Like, there's all kinds of people involved in every one person you're trying to get on your stage. And I think that the feedback that came back from women saying, I can't believe how inspired I feel. I mean, Erica Wark cried on stage. I mean, Joanna Griffiths was, she's the CEO of Knix, and she said publicly on stage,
which I'm wearing now, I might add.
Good, thank you. I'm sure she appreciates that. She said on stage, I wasn't sure that I was going to be successful.
Yeah.
And hearing a woman who sold a company for $320 million say that, And a lot of us are just trying to get out of bed and like sell a couple houses every day. Like it was just so inspiring to hear them from stage share their stories, and for women to say, I've never been to a conference where someone has publicly said on the stage, I didn't know if I was going to be successful.
She was so honest. One of the best things I've heard anyone say on stage, because it felt so real. It wasn't rehearsed. And perhaps, and I give you credit because you were obviously on stage with her, interviewing her. So you made her feel comfortable, from the chairs to the, like, even how she was sitting, the questions you asked. It wasn't like a, hey, you know, probably similar to what you were saying before on your one-on-ones with people, like, this is how I did it and this is how you should do it too, and now go off and do it. It was very, very honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave a lot of people the permission in the moment to say, okay, I feel the same way as she did, but now no more excuses, because if she felt that way and still did it, then I can surely still
That's correct.
move the needle in my life.
That's
Versus
correct.
if someone comes across as like that perfect person, it's like, well, she had money. Well, she came from this. Well, she had a team, right? We always try to find excuses to give ourselves the permission not to do something.
Yes. It was really important to me to, like I said to my mom, like, I don't want to make it sound like too whiny woman. Like, I didn't want to be too much like, this is so hard and it's okay. Like, I also wanted to be like, if you could give me a magic wand, I wouldn't want to be a man. I love being a woman. I
say that all the time too.
I love being
After I've just bitched and complained.
Of course, yeah. Which is what we do as women.
Yes.
We're like, we're just going to complain. We don't want to change it. We just want to complain. You know, I said to my mom, I don't want it to be too like whiny woman, where it's too like, meh, 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 or too much like, you know, this is men's fault and they're jerks and whatever. I think men are great. I think 99% of men out there on the planet are wonderful people who would do anything that we ask them to do. And that's my experience personally. And that's also my experience professionally. I work for two brothers. There's never been a time where I've said, I need this. And they've gone, no. If I say I need this because of XYZ, they're like, okay. All right, what if we did it like this? Or what if we changed that? Or would this make sense? Or would this work? And I'm like, yeah, that works. So like, great, let's do that. I've never had that experience. And so I didn't want it to be like, you know, men are the problem. And I didn't want it to be like, let's all just sit around and bitch about it and not actually do anything about it. Yeah. I wanted it to be, we can acknowledge and have these really kind of shameful, difficult conversations in a more public, safe space, but also then say, okay,
now what are we going to do about it?
Now what?
Right. Which is not dissimilar to, I'm sure, the nights where you've come home alone crying because it's quiet and you're like, I blew up my life. What am I doing? But then guess what? You still got up the next day and you still went to work and you still put your smile on and you did your Ryan Serhant talk and all those things, right? So it's, how can we still move forward? I just love the whole idea of the conference. It was so well executed. So I can't wait till next year when we do it, I have nothing to do with it. When you do it again, I'll start picking my outfit now. Out of curiosity, why becoming her? Who is her?
I mean, her really is the woman that, you know, you're trying to become, right? Because who you are when you're becoming her is going to be different from who I am, than who Tilly is, than who Alex is. You know, I think we're all on sort of this journey, and you know, someone said to me, do you ever become her?
Yeah. Is there the finish line?
There's no finish line. You know,
I was hoping mine was next year, like right around the corner.
No. I mean, maybe for some people, they do think that they become her, but I think that growth is if you're not growing, you know, you're dying. So I think becoming her really is, it's the journey that you're on as a woman in all of the areas of your life, right? It's the business you, and the, you know, professional you, and the mental health you, and the health and beauty you, and the motherhood you, and, you know, all of these components that make up who you are. And it's about the journey you're on to become that person. But who you want to be is going to evolve over time. Like you said, who I was at, you know, 22 is very different than who I am now.
Thank God, too.
Thank God. Because otherwise life would be super boring, right? I mean, it really would. And so I think the whole idea behind becoming her was really just, it's becoming.
You used the ing on purpose.
I did.
Because we're always on the journey. We're always in process.
That's correct. It's not become her, because become her, my team said that, should it be become her? And I'm like, no, because that implies that there's an ending. And there's not really an ending to, I think, the journey that women are on as they age. So
I know you're still on the journey.
I am.
but you've been through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and you obviously keep fighting and keep pushing through. Any last advice, at least the person you are today,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the person that you were before, what you would have told old Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a message that I try to tell, a lot of women when they come in to see me, and that, it kind of stems around this whole idea of like self-love. And the whole term like self-care, I kind of hate. Like it reminds me of like bubble baths and like Dove, which isn't sort of how I vision it. But really this idea behind self-love, like I tell women all the time, like, give yourself a damn break. Like, would you just be a little kinder and gentler to yourself, and everything's going to work out. I believe this tenet so strongly, and I say it to myself all the time. But I always say to myself, everything always works out for me, because it does. Everything always works out for me. And I've had people say to me, you're so lucky. I'm like, I don't think it's luck. I think it's a mindset. I think I approach things by thinking to myself, everything always works out for me.
It's funny, everything always works out for me. It's kind of similar to what I say to people when they'll say, Laura, but I don't have the views, I don't have the transactions, I don't have the experience. I always tell them to say yet.
Yes.
Right? Like, because even if something hasn't worked out for someone, it hasn't worked out yet.
Yes.
We just need a little bit more time.
Yeah. And so I think that's really what I think and what I say to myself. When I look back at myself, I think a little bit of like, have the compassion for the journey and be a little kinder to yourself. Give yourself a bit of a break. And just remember, everything works out. Everything works out for you. Everything's going to be fine. So,
I love that.
Thanks.
You're like my mom now.
Thanks. I know. I'm like
I want to
everyone's
like
mom.
hug.
I'm like everyone's mom.
Sam, I really appreciate you coming back to do this, not just once, to do it twice. And
It
to
was
take
my pleasure.
time out of your
My
busy
gosh.
life. And I hope that, this time around we got a little more into the weeds, because I
Mhm.
know that there was questions from the audience and from people in my life who I know that I'm very confident you've helped
Mhm.
today, because you've helped them
Yeah.
see that like there is the light
Yeah.
at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'm happy to chat with any of your viewers. If they need a little bit of an ear, happy to be there.
And at bare minimum, we'll let them know where Becoming Her is happening next year.
Next year.
It's going to be bigger and better, baby.
Bigger and better. Thank
Awesome.
you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And guys, we'll see you next time.